Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Spectrum on Radio 1. My name is Edmond, Kizito, your host. On Spectrum tonight, Uganda at 50. What should we focus on to attain political maturity? This year, Uganda will commemorate 50 years of independence, an event that many say calls for reflection on several issues, with governance being one of the key aspects. Today, MPs pushing for the restoration of the presidential term limit formed a partnership with civil society organizations that are behind a similar move under their pressure group, Citizens Action for the Restoration of Presidential Term Limits. This partnership is aimed at ensuring that presidential limits are restored before Uganda marks 50 years of independence in October. In order to achieve this objective, there will be a need to galvanize support in Parliament so they can amend the Constitution, a move that many say is likely to take a lot of time and also could face some resistance from the ruling majority NRM party. Now, the NRM has previously indicated that the chapter on presidential term limits, which is also linked to succession, was closed in 2005 when these term limits were actually scrapped. At the same time, some other political factors are focusing on changing the political landscape of the country, stressing that restating term limits is not an end in itself. This group believes that there are fundamental questions about governance that need to be answered. Over the weekend, the Buganda caucus in Parliament resolved to support the quest by Buganda to have a federal status. But the type of federalism that must be pursued seems to have divided the group. They have now put in place a committee to study the different forms of federalism worldwide. So tonight we take a look at the partnership between the MPs and civil society, try and see if it will actually deliver. We'll also look at the National Awakening campaign and the latest efforts by Uganda MPs to push for federalism. Our guests tonight, Honorable Godfrey Chiwanda, Member of Parliament for Mityana North, also Chairman of the Uganda Parliamentary Caucus. You're most welcome, Honorable Chiwanda.
Yeah, thank you very much, Edmond. My name is Chiwanda Godfrey Subi, Member of Parliament Mityana North. I'm Chairman of the Uganda Parliamentary Caucus.
That's right. Yes. We're also joined by Honorable Bettie, Namisango, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance. You're most welcome, Honorable Bettie.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mr. Frank Gashumba, Chief Strategist of the National Action for Awakening in Uganda. You're most welcome, Mr. Gashumba.
Thank you, Mr. Kizito.
We're also joined by Ms. Irene Odida Ovunji, focal chairperson on the Citizens Action for the Restoration of Presidential Term Limits. She's a former Member of Parliament at the East African Legislative Assembly. You're most welcome, Honorable Ovunji Odida.
Good morning, rather good evening, listeners, and thank you. I'm not the chairperson, I'm a member of that group.
Focal person, all right, member of that group. Very well. Maybe you would like you to tell us, what, in your view, Madam Odida, what are the key constitutional issues that demand immediate attention, in your view?
Edmond, as I mentioned earlier, I use Ovunji. That's my name. Odida is my husband's name. So I just prefer to be addressed as Irene Ovunji.
Irene Ovunji.
Please, yes.
Right.
I think the key thing that is facing us now is issues to do with leadership and issues to do with governance. There are severe challenges of democracy which are facing this country, and these are issues that also place us on a different path from other countries within the East African community, and actually on a different path with the trend in many countries in Africa. But the challenges around democracy, around governance, are quite many and they're quite deep. But we have felt that ultimately one of the first things that we need to look at is around presidential term limits as one of the primary drivers of those other challenges around governance.
Mr. Frank Gashumba, very briefly, can you talk to us about your organization, the National Action for Awakening Uganda, and then give us your own prognosis of Uganda's
I think she has really done some work for me. National Action for Awakening Uganda, our prime objective is to make sure that Ugandans really know their role in the society. Ugandans tend to believe that it's the government, it's the member of parliament, it's the chairman of the district that must lead their lives. So National Action for Working in Uganda, our message to them is very clear. The change you want begins with you. If you want to see a better Kampala, you must be better. If you want to see good roads, you must maintain them. If you want better member of parliament, you must elect the best brains ever. Simple.
All right, and talk to us about the key constitutional issues that you see from your head office in Ginger Road. When you look at the political landscape, what are the key constitutional crisis points that you see that need to be changed?
Personally, I've heard people saying that they should restore term limits. First of all, it was the mistake of the century. Ugandans spent many months working on the constitution of Uganda. Then all of a sudden, the president injected in a lot of money and the constitution was amended. Some of those MPs are the ones now pushing for the term limits to be back. And I can tell you, even if we restore the term limits today, unless Ugandans participate in the leadership of this country, we are wasting our time. Trust me on that. Even if Museveni left the presidency today, unless leaders, civilians get to know that a decision that is done in Kampala directly impacts the type of lives they live. I can tell you, people in Nakaseke, people in Masaka, don't believe that decisions that are made in Kampala directly affects the type of lives they live. So my message is very clear. Restoring the term limits is excellent, but beyond that, after the term limits, what next?
All right, we'll be talking about that as well as we go along. What's your own prognosis broadly?
About term limits?
Yeah, well, considering crisis, if you had to change things to make this country a better place, politically, what would you change?
Yeah, so first of all, I was in the 7th Parliament, the Parliament which opened the terms. So when we talk about term limits and the termless terms and all that, I'm really just I was part of it.
Did you vote for them?
I voted for it.
For the removal?
For the removal.
Have you repented or you still a sinner?
And I think one of my first statements the day I was sworn in as a member of parliament, I just say I thank my people for having returned me to parliament to undo what I did. And there are very many of us, members of parliament, who are in the 7th Parliament. Really, according to me, even if I'm in parliament, I've done only one thing: closing the term limits. I would have done a very good service to my people. When we look at Uganda, and of course, and the rest of East Africa, the tension you have in Uganda, the political tension and everything that you see, it's not about poverty. Nobody can deceive you that Uganda is so poor that they can. That's why they are rioting. That's why people are not seeing space at the end of the day. So that pushes people, and that's why you have a lot of tension. This one is pushing, the other is pushing, because it seems that there is no way through. I was comparing our president and our leadership here. It's not the poorest leadership actually in Africa. But when we compare our president and the leadership of NRM here with the rest of the leadership of Africa, you realize that we have even weaker leaders in the region, in Africa. But the fact that people know that maybe after 10 years or 5 years, so-and-so is going, the tension is reduced. The biggest problem you see in Uganda, the tension, we are buying patrols, you buy this patrol, you buy another one, you buy tear gas, you do this, nothing. The whole thing, yes, the whole thing is about this. Because when somebody does not see our way afterwards, maybe after 10 years, even after 20 years, even after 5 years, that one brings a lot of tension. And out of this tension, that's why we are using a lot of money, we are using a lot of resources, we are using a lot of police and security and what, to make sure that we start steering this, which I think if we pray to the times and we say at the end of the day somebody expect that okay, so is here, but within a certain time so and so will be going, it will reduce a lot of tension, and that is going to benefit Uganda, and most of the money that will be spent on security and what is going to be used in other tangible benefits.
Honorable Bettie Kamya, what ails this country's politics?
I largely agree with Honorable Chiwanda and my other colleagues that restoration of term limits will reduce the tension, but it will not solve the problem.
Yes.
Because the problem is bigger. I want to show you what happened. The problem of Uganda started a long time ago. And the problem would not, for instance, we had elections in 1962. How long did it take Dr. Obote to disorganize this country?
4 years.
3 years. 3.5 years. 3.5 years. We were supposed to have an election of the first term, which would have allowed him in 1967. Did we have the elections?
No.
Is it because we didn't have term limits? Look at Amin. How long did it take Amin to disorganize this country? 1 year. He took over 1971. By 1972, he had chased the Asians.
The economic wars.
The economic war started, and within 2 years, he was what do you call him?
He had become life president. He even had a list of titles, VCDS, Field Marshal, and others.
So really, while the restoration of term limits might help to deflate the tension, as Juanda says, it is not a guarantee that it will solve the problem, because the problem is bigger than a term.
Yes.
We quote countries like America, but America did not have term limits because of dictatorship. No. And Tanzania did not have term limits because of dictatorship. So term limits can work when you are in running gear. Not when you are already in running gear.
Yes.
When President Roosevelt, I think it was Roosevelt,
Theodore Roosevelt,
who ruled for 3 terms, and people just kind of said, well, people, when there's, in times of peace, people can just say, what the heck, let him just go on. They can just let you go on because there's no problem. And then you lose new ideas. People got inertia. And then they said, no, it's not such a good idea to let somebody go on and on and on, just people love like him. So in America, I don't think they instituted term limits because they had dictatorship. So while term limits might be a good thing, but remember, it was removed by a dictator, and it is still being resisted by a dictator. And it may find a very uphill task to be reinstated because of the dictator, and another dictator may remove it when. So really, I think the big picture that we need to focus on is the power of the presidency. We need to focus on that. And mind you, we might need to use the same resources, the same time, the same energy, the same money to deal with the real problem than the opportunistic problem.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. Tonight, Uganda at 50. What should we focus on to attain political maturity? Our guests tonight, Honorable Godfrey Chiwanda, MP Mityana North, also Chairman of Uganda, the Uganda Caucus in Parliament, Honorable Bettie, Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance, Mr. Frank Gashumba, Chief Strategist at the National Action for Awakening Uganda, Civil Society Advocacy Group, and Ms. Irene Odida, Citizens Action for the Restoration of Presidential Term Limits. You two will be able to contribute to this discussion. Madam Ovunji, talk to us about these plans you have with MPs to restore term limits. How far have you gone, and do you stand a chance?
Thank you very much, Edmond. I think there's consensus around the table that there is a deep problem. There are systemic problems that we have in governance, but there are also specific aspects of it. And this campaign around restoration of term limits is looking at an aspect of those systemic problems. I called it a driver of these problems earlier on. In fact, it is no accident that around the world the focus is on executive term limits, and this is what the issue is here. That because I've heard some people say, why don't we also look at term limits for members of parliament, term limits for other positions, LCs and so on. Those are very different offices from the presidency. The presidency, even when you look at the constitution, has articles which are devoted only to describing the powers of the president, because they are unique. As Bettie has said, my good friend Bettie and my sister, they are unique powers, and they're actually in many ways excessive powers that have been exercised by presidents in this country historically. But even in the constitution, we see that there are powers that are entrenched that the president has. He has the power to hire, to fire. They are very senior appointments that are made by the presidency, even though they are approved by parliament. But the presidency is the one, the president specifically, is the one that makes several important appointments appointments, including cabinet.
Yes.
So because of that, and is the commander-in-chief of the army. Now, let's not forget that in our country...
Of the armed forces, that includes the policemen.
Yes, all of the armed forces, the security and so on, all these. So that executive power, historically in this country, has led to excesses of the president. That's why this is a unique office that the citizens, in their wisdom and from their experience in the Constituent Assembly, through the representatives in the CA, decided it needed something special that would give it checks, to create checks on that power, so that even if you had a good president, even if you had a bad president, eventually there would be a change, there would be a turnover, which, as my brother Honorable Kiwanda has said, leads to a release of tension, a lessening of tension, a reduction in violence. When I look at this campaign, at the back of my mind, I worry. I seriously worry about where this country is headed. We have seen in the past year or two how these tensions have escalated, and so many different groups have mobilized themselves around issues on which they feel they are not getting redress, they are not getting answers from government. And this, for example, in Kampala, we saw what happened in the past year, walk to work, the tear gas, all of that going on. And a lot of these interests are legitimate issues that are being raised by citizens around poverty, around lack of democratic space. As we speak, I know that there are many NGOs in Kampala and outside Kampala who are not able to carry out their programs effectively because of that restriction on civic action, particularly in the groups that are involved in advocacy. I know that there are many journalists and people from the media who are getting hit when they are trying to carry out their work to report accurately on what is actually happening on the streets, and they are being blamed for that. Now, all of this is leading to tensions, and ultimately the worry that we have, the concern we have as civil society and even many members of parliament as people's representatives, is that this country has a potential to explode into violence.
Right.
We don't want that.
Okay.
We want us to build consensus,
right,
and to deal with these conflicts,
right,
with citizens involved,
okay,
and the space open for them to involve.
Right. So
this action, to answer your question, I'm sorry I've taken long on that, this action is really about NGOs, civil organizations, including faith-based, coming together and saying, we have a stake in this country. We have a responsibility and we have a right to participate in governance,
right,
and to influence the direction of things towards peaceful resolution of differences, peaceful management of diversities. And we believe that Parliament can be a partner in this.
Right.
But it will need courage, it will need people to look ahead and say, we must, as leaders in this country, do what is right for Uganda for the next 50 years.
All right, and to put it in perspective, President Museveni has ruled longer than all Uganda's former leaders combined.
Yes, half
he's
the time
ruled
independent.
3 times as long as President Idi Amin, who had the longest single term. Just to give it perspective. Some people, I met a university lecturer, he's got a master's, he was born in 1986. I had to pinch myself.
And I'm sorry, Edmond, related to that, sorry, just one last quick thing. The issue of FDR in the USA. Yes, it was not dictatorship, but it was longevity.
Right.
And Americans, yes, in his third term, Americans realized longevity leads to impunity. It actually ends up giving too much powers to the president.
Right.
So even in that great democracy, they felt they had to put legal systems to check a president who had been in power too long.
Right. The over-quoted theme is Lord Attain saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Mr. Gashumba, what are the roadblocks to this campaign? Some people think it's a crusade restoring pro-term limits. What could...
First of all, it won't be easy. I can tell you, I supported President Museveni from 86 up to 1996.
Only 10 years?
Yes.
You are a mean man. Only 10 years?
Let me tell you, the Museveni I know ended in 2000.
Me too.
I campaigned for him in Masaka. I wear this watch on this right hand side because of him.
Right. He wears
but the Museveni I know is it's not the Museveni I see now. I can tell you his main objective: how do we keep ourselves in power forever?
Really?
Forever. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about the poor people. And I can tell you the struggle you've started, UMPs and my sister, it won't be easy. First of all, he has the money. I'm sorry, Honorable. The MPs I'm seeing today, they will talk, we want term limits. He's going to call them to State House.
Yes.
He's going to give them money. At the end of the day, you won't be hearing them anymore. He's the president who appoints the electoral commissioners, all of them. Basically, he's a player in Man U, in Manchester United, and again, he's the referee. How do you expect a free and fair election from such a person? Let me tell you, the message I can give you to Ugandans on Radio 1 is simple. Unless the peasants know their rights and the power they have, I can tell you we are wasting time. As we are seated in Radio 1 now, that where I hail from in Masaka, people in Ibundibujo, in Kanungu, they don't know what belongs to them. They don't know the power they have. They don't know that the decisions made in Kampala directly affects their lives. They don't actually, people in Nakaseke believe if there is no medicine in hospitals, that's the type of life it's supposed to be. You're getting me?
Right. And your part of your job is to make action for it to wake them.
And I can tell you they are waking up at the highest speed.
All right.
The moment people realize what belongs to them, they will demand for it.
All right.
I agree with Bettie. Even if we have to trim the power of the presidency, everything now is done in State House. Everything.
They even have a desk to monitor nuts.
No, the president said State of the National Address, he said that salons don't develop countries. But I'm relying on him. He gave 200 million to salon whatever operators in Kampala during his elections.
All right, let's move forward.
And you expect a revolution from such a regime?
All right. Honorable Chiwanda, will Parliament support this in the end? Shall we get traction there?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very hopeful that this time the issue of term limits and the closure of the terms really is going to attract a lot of support. I remember when I was in the 7th Parliament, that some were coming to 10 years because, it's coming to 10 years since this debate was at the floor Parliament. But I got over 57 people who were opposed.
57 opposed?
Yes, opposed.
So you think the curve is going up or down?
And I remember, but I don't know why I can stand here and I can really testify that members of Parliament did not open the term limits because they were given money. That's not true. It is not true at all.
What happened?
The issue of 5 million.
That was for airtime.
Yeah, not even for airtime. Not even for that. Because a member of Parliament, for example, a member of Parliament today is 20 million shillings and above. Enough. When we talk about 5 million shillings.
Well, at that time it
not even if, because by that time I was earning about 12 million shillings. 12 million shillings per month.
20 million.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So, let me tell you, when we talk about money, we talked about this. We said, Mr. President, and we were actually discussing this. We said, Mr. President, we know about this, you've contributed here, and actually there was even a middle proposal, which was brought by Dr. Rumoki. Dr. Rumoki was saying, we shouldn't open this constitution. Let's just have 5 years for the president, as Museveni, and afterwards, then we close.
All right.
Honorable Chiki also came in and said, it was just like a gentleman's agreement. Okay, what do we do now?
You have to go for a break. Yes. This is Spectrum Radio. We'll be back to the station. Yo, wait. This is that desk from Montanaz.
Hear the voices and the sounds of Africa. One love, one spirit, one heart in Africa. See the beautiful sunset of Africa.
Celebrate Africa with one rate, One Africa from Airtel. Call across all Africa at a flat rate of only 10 shillings per second. That's right, 10 shillings per second all day, all night. And stand a chance to win a fully paid trip for 2 to Mombasa every week. Another reason to celebrate Africa in proud association with Fly 540 Airlines and Serena Hotels. Terms and conditions apply.
Airtel. When Junior lost his appetite, his mother tried all methods to get him to eat. She tried scary stories.
Eat, Tommy, eat, or the big black elephant will come and eat all your food.
She tried magic.
Tommy, if you eat your food, I will turn this handkerchief into sweets. Look, bumble, bumble, boom, boom.
Then she discovered Attain multivitamin syrup with lysine.
Mommy, I finished all the food. I am number 1.
Attain multivitamin with lysine is helping mothers to turn mealtime frustration to a fun moment. Attain has a great taste and contains lysine, which quickly improves your child's appetite and supports healthy growth. Attain, help for life.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight, Uganda at 50. What should we focus on to attain political maturity? Our guests tonight, Honorable Godfrey Chiwanda, MP Mityana North, Chairman of the Uganda Caucus, Parliamentary Caucus, Honorable Bettie, Kamya, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance, Mr. Frank Gashumba, Chief Strategist at the National Action for Awakening Uganda, and Miss Irene Odida, Citizens Action for the Restoration of Presidential Term Limits. You will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. You can also send in your text messages. What you do is type the word Spectrum, question, message, or comment. Send it to 7197. Honorable Chiwanda, the Uganda Caucus in the Parliament decided to create a force to restore federalism. What kind of federalism are you talking about?
Yeah, Mr. Gashumba, you know, wherever I'm going to talk about federal,
yes,
and Honorable Bettie Kamya is here, I feel like I'm in nursery about federal.
You're a catechist in front of her.
Yeah, because really, she's a big crusader about federalism. But what we're discussing in Uganda Caucus, really, if this federal question has been in place for a long time. And the Uganda MPs, wherever we are in campaigns, we could say we are going to fight about federal. At times, people even talk about what they don't know. But really, the federal is about power sharing. You know, how do we share? How do we share power from central government so that it goes to the states, maybe to the regional government, to states and districts. And wherever we could talk about federal, the president would say, but you have decentralization. And when the Mengo power say, no, that is not power sharing. That is like borrowing power, and it belongs to somebody which can be recalled in time. Then when this question also came, it was part of our agenda when we went for the retreat. We said, okay, the federal question is a big question, and we need to discuss it. We need to study it further, because really, when I was in Australia recently, they are under federal system. When you go in the other countries, you know, there are different countries and they share power differently. So I said, what is the best federal in Uganda? What should be the best way of sharing this power in Uganda? We think there is too much power at the executive, at the center. But what should be the best way to share this? Because when we talk about districts, now really we'll go to some districts, actually they have nothing. There is no power at the districts. You go to the district, there are no resources, and really, because you cannot talk about power without resources. So really, we didn't conclude on this. That's why we have created a committee to study, and we shall call resource people like Honorable Bettie Kamya in our caucus. And we said that within 3 months, we are going back for retreat, basically to study about this, and we shall be having a report. We are going to sponsor even some people to other countries to bring us the modes of sharing, power sharing. What's the best way for Uganda? So that's basically about that. And Uganda Caucus did not have come out conclusively on this, but we said no, we should give it a hearing, and a serious one. And the best way is that we should expose to some of the people, they go out, and even we talked about Honorable Bettie Kamya, that in the next visit we shall invite her to come and brief us, because at least she has done some work over federal, and that's why we created this committee, which is headed by Professor Bukenya, to go out.
Professor Gilbert Bukenya.
We have Professor Gilbert Bukenya, the former Vice President, and he's heading a committee of about 8 people to go, and we are going to sponsor them. They go out and they come back with a report.
You are serious, gentlemen and ladies. Mr. Frank Gashumba, talk to us about federalism. Is that something
study about what? You know, this government is so smart. You don't know how this government operates. Yes. You must be sober. You must spend a lot of your time thinking about Uganda. That's when you can master them. They are very good at setting up committees. They will set up committees for 6 months.
No, but this is outside of the government structures. This is Uganda.
I know. There must Ugandans don't know this man called Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
He's outside of this.
I know.
This is Uganda.
I know. He can even use Uganda MPs.
What is going to happen? Give us your...
He can even use, I'm sorry, whenever he wants himself, come up with a suggestion, I'm going to fund it. I'll even send it back to Australia or to Germany to study it. But it will be the man controlling everything. How do we pass their time? Simple.
How should they do it better in any of you?
Pardon?
How should they do it?
It's very clear, the St. Paper recommendations, what Ugandans need.
Yes.
But something the Bettie Kamya should do, which is very important, you the Chwandas. People, when you talk of federal, they think it's a Uganda affair.
Well, they've opened it up.
No. When you go to Guru, you go to Bunyoro, they don't know what federal means. When you talk of federal, they think, Uganda, you're getting me. Let me tell you, if you want to give Ugandans a better life, give them federal type of governance. A few countries I've been to where there's federal system, it's excellent.
I think
you've thought about this much longer than many people. Does that agree with your model?
Yeah, I think Frank is right. And
now let's first of all talk about the model that's coming from Mengo.
Oh, the model must be designed for Uganda.
Yes.
There are many federal brands around the world.
Yes.
And there's the broad concept of power sharing and equity and policy formulation. There is the broad concept of federalism, but then each country customizes or domesticates its brand based on its history, on its aspirations, on its challenges. So they domesticate their own brand. So what we need to do in Uganda, it is right to study the various federal brands, but more importantly, to design a brand for Uganda. And that brand will be designed by Ugandans. I hear some people saying, we want a hybrid of America and Malaysia. You cannot go on a shelf and buy American brand and a Malaysian and mix them in a bottle. We must design one for Uganda. But having said that, what I wanted to say about Frank Gashumba, what he said is right, that we must de-Ugandanize federalism. And that's what Uganda Federal Alliance has deliberately done and is doing. For it to be accepted and functional properly in this country, federalism needs to be de-Ugandanized and Ugandanized. Right. Because for now, it was packaged as a Uganda thing. And I think what happened was a hybrid of federalism and monarchism and got federal, which is a hybrid of federalism and monarchism. And so those people who don't have monarchism, they feel left out. They feel left out. They don't like it. So we've got to de-Ugandanize it, Ugandanize it, and even universalize it so that it is the federalism of power sharing. Then the different regions can customize their own federalism according to a formula that is nationally agreed upon.
Honorable Ovunji, something else. Some people have spoken about a parliamentary democracy where, we had it in 1980, the winning party names their president. Is that something that one of the reforms that you would support, for instance?
Actually, to be honest, right now, what I would want to focus on in this campaign is the issue of presidential term limits. And the reason why is because it has driven so many other things. Even the challenges that Frank has talked about relating to parliament and so on, it has been driven by the president. The president and the power of the purse. Now, when
the power of the purse.
The power of the purse.
Explain that in plain English.
When you say that ordinary citizens do not know their powers, they do not know what is theirs. It is very true. So you find when people are talking about the president, they'll talk about the president giving this and that. The president giving donations, the president giving this and... But the reality is that is public money. It is money that comes from when you buy this bottle of water, you pay tax on it. Or you have income on something, you pay tax on it. So all that money collectively comes, and it is the money which is at the disposal of government. Now, as the head of government, you find that becomes at the disposal of the president. But unfortunately, in our case, without checks and balances. So this is essentially about creating checks on the most powerful office in this country, which historically, not only under the current administration, but since independence, even colonial. In fact, if you go further back, the governor, it since Uganda was formed, let us say, that power, that executive power has been used against citizens. And so what we're saying is that let us start there. There are other issues, and I completely concur with all that has been said. There are other issues, and for those, what I would suggest, even for this issue, is that we must have a national debate. We must have a national dialogue. When this issue of presidential term limits first came up, if you remember, it was first mentioned by Bishop Zak sometime last year.
Bishop Zak
Neringie, yes. And very quickly the government moved to say this issue should not be discussed. You remember? Members of parliament who started talking...
government?
Current government.
Because the government cannot tell us what we have to discuss.
But that is what happened. And actually, let me finish.
A small correction.
Yes, what's the correction?
Irene, I just wanted to make a small correction that by January, on the 10th of January, Uganda Federalists had sat with the Electoral Commission, and we gave them notice that we are going to call a referendum on federalism and term limits.
Yes.
So, and that's even on record, in writing, at the Electoral Commission archives.
Right.
I think they're
even trying to budget for it.
Just additional, additional. I might have missed it. I wasn't here in January. But the thing is, when members of parliament, including from NRM, came up and said, yes, we think this is an important national issue, they were quickly told this is the wrong forum to discuss it. This has to be discussed in the caucus. And they were being shut up. And then as civil society, we came out and we called a press conference and we said, this is a national issue. It cannot be turned into a partisan issue for NRM or FDC or whichever party. It's a national issue which all of us must be involved in.
Right.
And that's the call we have. So I agree with Frank. Citizens must know their power. If the Constitution says power belongs to the people, what does that mean?
Well, they give it to someone who dispenses it on their behalf.
On their behalf, thank you, on their behalf. So when you have serious issues affecting citizens like poverty, when citizens want to raise their voices on issues, why is it that same power says you cannot do it? Is that on your behalf?
That's not the right
Okay, of course, incidentally, Mr. Gashumba, before we hear from the listeners, local government chiefs were complaining the other day, saying they get only 17% of the national budget and get the other people who do the actual work of service delivery in that district. They get 17%
of what?
Of the national budget.
Actually, local leaders, LOC5s, LOC3s, they get what, 17%? But what's government? Yes. Local government.
You think they should reduce it?
They are saying that they are giving them little money?
Yes.
It goes back. Who dispatches that money? Betty was telling you, unless we put up systems, who decides how much money we must give to Masaka, to Mpigi or Wakiso? Minister of Finance. And who appoints the Minister of Finance? It goes back to the ordinary person. Why would I go to a hospital where there's no medicine? Why would you give me 17% when your convoy consists of 40 cars?
What is the ideal number for a convoy?
Let me tell you. 2 weeks back I was in Spain. The president moves with 3 cars. Dubai. Let me tell you, the king is it called Maltum or something, that the ruler for Dubai. One G-Wagon across country and a police car. One.
Well,
but it's in Uganda where you find a state minister with a lead car.
Alright.
It's in Uganda where you find a small lieutenant with the 2 cars.
From the listeners, let's democratize it a little bit. I was in another country recently and I was amazed when I saw a presidential convoy passing by. When I asked, they said that actually is the president's. This is Spectrum Radio 1. You can call in now. Our number 0414-348-111, 031-226-0390, 031-226-1390. Spectrum, hello? Yes, Jose?
We attain political maturity. We need to cut out
Spectrum, hello? Hello?
Yes, Radio 1?
Yes. Spectrum, hello.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
on the issue of restoration of dams.
Okay, we've lost that caller. Spectrum, hello. Okay, let's get back to the studio. Honorable Chiwanda.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the question was from Mr. Usinje when he talked about. Let me respond to that one when he says that the people of Uganda know.
Okay, the lines are clear now. Let's get.
Yes.
Spectrum, hello. Good evening, sir. Your name? Alright, let's get back to the studio. Honorable Chiwanda.
Yeah, thank you very much. Somebody was saying that the people of Uganda know what kind of federal they want. I don't believe in that statement. But I know when my sister Bettie came up with the Federal Alliance, really, there was some resistance even from Uganda itself. They were saying that this is the kind of federal that we demand. Really, I think there must be some consensus. Yeah, we must discuss and see what's the best one. So that when people just say the word federal, what does it mean? If it means about power sharing, what kind of power? How do we share? What kind of power should go to the state? What kind of power should go to the district? Well, something like that. Me, I still believe that when we involve into a discussion, we shall come up with a solution to this. Secondly, when she said that we are going to spend a lot of money taking people out, this is not going to be government money. It's not about government money. As members, we can we are contributing monthly as the caucus members.
Buganda caucus.
As Buganda caucus.
Contribute money.
Yes, we contribute money to our caucus. We bank it on our account. We bank it on our account, and we shall be able to sponsor our people, and we shall even be having some well wishes. We need to build a consensus, and this can only be brought when we have exposed ourselves, we have exposed our members, because there is that blanket. And as other members were saying, today I was in the parliamentary canteen, said, "Oh, Chiwanda brought again the federal of Uganda." You see, that kind of thinking and that kind of negativity
so
about
other people, parliamentary caucuses,
yes,
from Acholi and so on.
Exactly, from Acholi, from Lango, from Bunyoro. Last time the king was the king of Bunyoro was in parliament. He came to my committee. I'm a member of the Committee of Natural Resources. He was talking about royalties of the oil. He was saying we need 17%. And how do we have this? You know, it's not a government. When you say it's not a government, then when you give them 17%, and for what now? They put it where? Because it's not. These are not yet governments. These are not yet government. They are not regional. They are not federal states. But it's a culture institution. So really, I think when we have discussions, we shall come up with say, okay, because now it began like it was Buganda issue. I think Karamoja used to work in Karamoja. Karamoja has now about 8 districts. But when we even talk about them, they have gold. They have a lot of tourism. They have what? Yeah. And when you look at Karamoja, you would think that it's a very poor state. But really, when you empower them, can we see some development in Karamoja? When they talk about their road, last time we took their power. The power moved from here to Abim, to Napak, to Nakapiri and even to armor that. But remember the parliament last time they had a press conference saying, for us we don't need power. What we need is a tarmac road. It's not about power because you give them power. Karamoja. So what can we say that Karamoja can
let them decide
what they want?
Not somebody else determining for. Honorable Ovunji, you can give us your reactions.
Yes, I think studying the issue is not a bad thing, and having a debate about it. I was on a committee a couple of years last year, but one set up by the Summit of East Africa, which was looking at the question of political federation for the region, and there was some study that we had to do as part of that, to look at different forms of federalism, India, Canada, and so on. So one can look at what exists in other countries and then see what is relevant to our country. But some of the critical things are around power and how it's distributed. So you must look at things like power over decision making, fiscal federalism. Where is the purse, and how is it distributed? The money, how is that distributed, and other resources. So and then issues to do with citizenship, because you have a question of the nationals who live within the different states. Are they citizens of this state or the other state? Which one has more power over them? And how do you distribute different sectors? Because you find that certain sectors, like say foreign relations and so on, tend to be federal institutions, and then the rest are handed over to the states that are within the federation. So it is something worth studying. But I agree with, I think it was a caller or somebody who said that this is something that needs to be looked at as a Ugandan issue. And what I would also propose, therefore, is that even in this initiative, there's a need to have that discussion already beyond Uganda.
Yes, Mr. Frank Gashumba.
Yeah. I don't recall his name. He was saying that he always criticized the president. Yes, because I supported him so much, and I'm very disappointed.
Yes.
But I'm not here to for alternatives. You invite me the next time.
Right.
How do you expect me to support a regime every day? A Kamunye full of mothers. You know what I mean?
16 mothers die in childbirth.
Every day.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes. Countrywide. Yes. From preventable diseases.
I'm coming.
Yes.
If we took all those dead bodies to Nambori, what would that be? It would be full of Nambori for the whole year. You are getting me? How do you expect me to continue supporting a regime that doesn't care about the poor people? You are getting me? It's in Uganda, where there is no functioning health system. You go to Monago, you have to pay for a wheelchair. You are getting me? It's in Uganda where you find a patrol car acting as an ambulance. And this young man tells me that I should continue supporting the president. Actually, I supported this government so much, and I'm very, very disappointed because they liberated this country in 1986 on the promise of empowering people. They're not doing it. They're not doing it. Yes, you talked of that. Peasants always elect. Oh my God. Since 1990, how many elections have we had? But have they changed people's lives? How many? Every after 5 years, there are elections.
Yeah.
There are elections. But the poverty levels are going up.
Well, they're going down, I think.
Where?
Statistically.
Those are figures crafted in the Bank of Uganda Ministry of Finance. Let me tell you, you walk on the streets of Kampala. If you market the road block on the streets of Kampala, a person having 10,000 shillings, you want to get him. People work from home. I'm telling you this because I mingle with the peasants every day. I mingle with ordinary people. The advantage I have is I mingle with the ordinary people and the rich people in this country.
Right.
So my brother, I'm telling you, I'm not giving up on this struggle. I started it because I love this country. Right. I have a stake in this country.
Okay, we have to move forward. Interesting. You're saying you meet people in the street, they dressed well. If you turn them upside down, you might not hear a coin fall to the ground. Honorable Bettie,
well, for me, I feel sorry for
Bettie before this. Okay, nothing like 10,000 shillings with him or her. But these guys have sacks of money in their houses. Rooted money that is meant to look after the poor people.
In their houses.
In their houses, they count it in kilos.
Kilos of money.
And they expect us to smile on the streets of Kampala. I'm sorry, my brother.
All right, Honorable Bettie.
For me, I feel almost sorry for people like Frank, who is so angry that things are going that way.
Yes.
But really, they are predictable. It's a natural consequence of too much power. Wherever there's too much power, the result is dictatorship. If you give Angel Gabriel too much power, you will have a problem from heaven.
Become Lucifer.
Gabriel will become a dictator. And the results of dictatorship are human rights abuse, are electoral malpractices, are corruption. So you are really mourning about consequences. We need to start talking about the cause. That's why I keep drawing people back to the cause. Let's stop mourning about consequences, because consequence is like saying that man he's staggering. Why is he staggering? Because he was drinking alcohol. And you keep giving him alcohol, but you're complaining that he's staggering. If he's drinking alcohol, he will stagger. So deal with the cause of bringing alcohol where that man will find it. That's why I keep telling people to go back to the problem. The cause of dictatorship is the power of the presidency. And having said that, just to go back a little to the question that were asked, I differ slightly in approach from my colleagues. We agree on the basics, and I agree with the gentleman who said civic education and people power.
Yes.
If you confine things to Parliament, Parliament is the one which removed term limits.
Yes.
Parliament is the one which wants to reinstate term limits. And we are saying Parliament may not be able. So when you focus on Parliament,
that's why I want to refer.
Parliament is easy to manipulate. If you want to involve the people in decision making, you go for a referendum. And it is provided for.
Who manages that referendum? It is the Electoral Commission.
Yes.
That is the challenge.
Thank you very much. The members of Parliament. Honorable Godfrey Chiwanda, MP Michana, Chairman of the Uganda Caucus, thank you for coming. Spectrum, Honorable Bettie, President of the Uganda Federal Alliance, Mr. Frank Gashumba, Chief Strategist at the National Action for Working in Uganda, and Ms. Irene Odida, Citizens Action for the Restoration of Presidential Term Limits. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond Kizito. Spectrum will be back tomorrow. Up next is the news in English.
1 hour. Where up, Semukutu? I'll be here. As in, can you please send me